So, I've now played more than 20 hours of Battlefield 6 across the playtests, labs, and now, of course, the reveal event. EA sponsored me to travel to LA to capture video and stream from that event, and hopefully some of you saw that live. I thought I would go through my impressions I have so far of the gameplay, and also what I'm concerned about in the game right now. But first, let's talk about the positives. The maps and the environments in this game are immediately noticeable as a step above anything that we saw in Battlefield 2042. Highly detailed, nice effects, bespoke areas without too much copy pasting, and of course major improvements to destruction across the board. The New York map was my favorite, followed by the Cairo map, and lastly the Liberation Hill map. There's clearly a huge focus on more infantry-dominated gameplay, which I love. However, I do hope that there is a ton of map variety once the full game releases. They've also made an effort to actually make it feel like a real war zone, background effects, not just what's in front of you. In some cases, like what we saw in Battlefield 1, but honestly, I think BF1 still might win in that category. The only issues I found so far with the map design is that there's lots of small ledges that you sometimes get stuck on whilst running around, or you can sometimes run up small angles and just launch yourself like 5 feet in the air. But these are things that I hope are cleaned up by release. Now for gunplay and movement. All the guns feel punchy and powerful, and they can almost always be built to have little to no recoil. The hip fire felt manageable but fair. All the guns I used felt strong enough to compete. I didn't feel like I couldn't use the gun that I tried, but that could also be due to the extremely fast time to kill on every automatic weapon. At close ranges, most guns will 4-shot kill, from what I can tell, and that's without any headshot damage. Luckily, you get breakdown stats for damage sources to explain how you died. Fast TTK is what most people prefer for a more casual game, because it means that any player can kill anyone if they kind of spot them first. The comparison I made is that it feels a bit like BF4 or BF3 time to kill, but the hit registration and recoil has been massively improved, so you actually hit every shot now. The time to death can feel almost like hardcore sometimes. If you hold down the trigger on a full auto without burst firing, the spread eventually increases a little, but nowhere near the levels of previous games. And this is where snipers felt pretty weak. Because of the close quarters maps available to use during the tests and the ranges that we fought, the only time I felt a sniper was usable was on the big map Liberation Hill and Breakthrough on the small maps with linear pathways. Aim punch whilst being shot also seems to massively affect your aim, but there's no suppression mechanic that I could feel when people miss around you. However, at least with the only sniper that was available, the sweet spot mechanic was back, but only at a range over 80 meters. So a big focus on long range with the snipers. However, I do hope that there is a sniper that maybe excels at close range to give us a chance on those maps. Even if you manage to hit someone at close range with a sniper and get them low, the pistol switch animation is so slow and clunky with an arbitrary delay before firing, you're dead before you can even shoot again. I don't think switching weapons, especially to pistols, should be punished when every other gun can kill so fast. The pistol recoil also highlights how bad the visual recoil can be, with the red dot on the sights not attached to the center of the screen. I feel like this needs to be massively improved in some way before launch. Lastly, I'm sure many of you saw that there was a completely broken shotgun being used by almost everyone at the event. Apparently this was actually bugged and it was far more accurate than it was supposed to be in hipfire. Obviously they need to fix that before beta or we're going to have a horrible shotgun meta on our hands. Now for the character movement. You can slide, jump, sprint, crouch sprint, mantle at any height up to forehead, and prone in any direction with a prone dive if timed with sprinting. You may have seen that you can currently sprint jump into a slide, giving you a huge boost to the slide length, which you can then bunny hop out of as well, making you very difficult to hit when you're sliding around a corner. You can also bunny hop around corners. I personally love the jump and slide, but the bunny hop I think needs to have faster diminishing returns on speed. Like after that first jump, you should not be able to keep your maximum momentum. I think a lot of players will complain about too fast movement with the tech scene so far, but honestly, I'm happy either way. Proning backwards was a common theme for camping players, as we saw in BF5 as well. It's very easy to blend into the ground as a dead player when you're lying on your back, and I think a more prominent animation for players sitting up should be applied to stop players abusing this. Something new in this Battlefield game that I'm not sure everyone noticed is that your health regen starts pretty quickly and slowly ticks up. But if you're not shot in roughly 10 to 15 seconds, another bar fills up behind your current health and then instantly gives you all your health back. I'm not sure if this was a specific class trait that I might have missed, but it's certainly something I don't think I've seen in Battlefield before. And talking of the player traits in this game, each class now has passive perks that unlock during the game whilst you play. But in my opinion, these perk unlocks are not obvious to the player on the UI. I don't think I ever realized when I'd reached a new perk level and gained a new buff. Maybe there should even be a setting that you can turn on that just gives you a larger UI prompt if you want it. Now, moving on to the character design and of course the class design. I think the characters look real and grounded, none of this strange hero character bollocks. I'm not sure how much customization there's going to be at launch, or whether we can even change how our characters look at all. However, the most common thing that I noticed was that I could not tell the classes apart at all. I don't think there was a single time I immediately knew what class I was fighting at any point. Maybe sometimes I would notice the recon class specifically because of the leaves that are attached to the shoulders, but my experience was assault, engineer, and medic all look identical at first glance. Nothing in their silhouette is immediately recognizable. I still feel like we have better class identifiers in older games before Battlefield 5. One thing that they've absolutely nailed that we should have had in BF5 is the player dragging feature. This is one of the things in the game that actually makes it feel like we've progressed. It looks so good whether you're the person dragging or the player being dragged. It's so cinematic. Now, speaking of options, when I checked out what settings were available, I stumbled across some interesting settings that will definitely impress some players. One thing I don't think I've seen in a game before is that when you change your sensitivity in the menu, it now gives you an exact 360 measurement alongside popular DPI levels for mouse input, which massively helps when switching from other games with different settings. There's also a brand new setting called Flick Look, which I believe is going to be like pressing a key that quickly looks behind you to check your flanks. A bit like how we had in Mirror's Edge, if you played that. Or maybe it will be used in vehicles to quickly check behind without having to drag your aim to look in third person. Then there was the graphics and performance. I set my game to basically mostly high settings, and the game felt very smooth. Obviously, the PCs at the reveal event are going to be high-end machines, but it has all the performance settings that you would expect from a new game. I actually used DLSS quality for the entire event without realizing, and I couldn't feel any issues with mouse input, lagging, or visual artifacting. I am always concerned about how well the game runs on consoles and low-end PCs, so if anyone has played labs on those platforms, please let me know how the game felt when running on lower-end hardware. And on that note, I didn't have a single issue with crashes, stutters, or glitches almost the entire event. I had one bug where I couldn't spawn once, and the only other memorable thing was that sometimes when I placed down equipment, it would fall through the map. But nothing game-breaking or that stopped me from playing. I only had a couple of servers that felt a little rubber bandy at very small intervals, but nothing major. With the audio, I used the default audio mix, and I had very good directional sound for gunshots, explosions, and vehicles, and DICE have really outdone themselves with the audio quality. It's as good as ever. But I will say that if there's literally any other sound in the game at the time, you will unfortunately not hear a footstep to save your life. As for the vehicles, they don't seem to be too annoying to play against so far. I jumped in a vehicle maybe a couple of times and I used the splash damage on the main cannons and I didn't instantly wipe people. It certainly felt less frustrating than it has in previous games. You'd probably have to ask mainly vehicle players about their opinions, but I didn't feel like vehicles were too strong or weak. Now, for the class discussion. Whilst I think that class-locked weapons have a place in Battlefield, having open weapons on all classes didn't stop me from enjoying the game. You know what I mean? Like, I would love for classes to be more front and center in a Battlefield game, but the game still carries even if it doesn't. In certain scenarios, like the smaller maps, I genuinely couldn't use a sniper in the situations that we were in, but it was nice to be able to use an SMG, but still have access to a spawn beacon. What I'm trying to say is the game was fun without thinking of it as a class shooter, but it also felt like classes weren't really the focus or impactful either. Is it straying too far from the Battlefield formula? You can much more easily play your own way without having to rely on teammates in this game more than others, especially now you can regen health faster, and if you run out of ammo, you can actually pick up downed player kits to carry on your kill streak. I'm glad that they'll actually be testing class-locked weapons in the beta, and I'm ready to try that out when it comes, but ultimately, I think we have a strong base of a game here that can essentially go in any direction. I was blown away by the trailers, and the fact that we're seemingly getting GTA 5 levels of custom maps with the portal mode and a battle royale in the future. So far, I'm impressed with the polish in this version of the game versus the Labs playtest that I played earlier. They definitely felt unfinished and glitchy at times, and I was genuinely concerned that the game was going to be in a bad state when beta rolled around. But we'll have to see what actually happens during beta and release, and there's still some deep-seated frustration left behind from previous launches. Please let me know your thoughts about what you think about the game so far down in the comments. What would you want them to change and why? And if you agree with anything I've said in this video, then leave it a like or a dislike if you disagree. But as for me, I will be streaming the full beta that comes out in a few days, starting the 7th of August. And if you want to see tons more Battlefield 6 and news, make sure you're subscribed to keep up with the masses of content coming your way soon. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.